Hey folks, and welcome to the Daily Ratings Podcast. It's a show where each week we'll sit down with Vincent Daly to get his thoughts on the latest movies he's been watching, both older films and new releases. And don't worry, there's no spoilers. Vince will give a brief review of the movie, share some thoughts, and of course, then rate the film. The daily ratings are always fair, honest, and most importantly, they're consistent. On today's show, Vince will be rating and reviewing Predator, directed by John McTiernan, Predator 2 by Stephen Hopkins, Predators by Nimrod Antal, The Predator by Shane Black, and finally, Prey, directed by Dan Trachtenberg. So stay tuned and enjoy the show. Mr. Vincent Daly, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Tom, how's it going?
It's going really well for me. How was you had quite the Predator week.
Oh, yeah.
How was your Predator-filled week?
Was I the hunt? Was I the prey? No, honestly, I'm a huge fan of Predator as a franchise. I was originally into Predator first, before even Alien, and then now Alien obviously beats Predator for me, but I was very excited for this. Really, Prey wasn't a sequel I saw coming, but excited to talk about these movies, because honestly, a lot of these films I fall in love with again and again and again. So there's a lot to love here.
Yeah, that's cool, and of course it fits in the 5 slot. This is pretty much a special that we're doing, but because Prey's new, releasing it as a normal kind of episode. But I don't know, it's fun that we have a 5 slot. I didn't really know about Prey, and I don't know, the fact that it's on Hulu doesn't exactly get me excited.
Sure,
or take it seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. Hulu's main feature releases are a little bit light and toned down, I guess we could say, if we want to be generous. But
now to get completely straight on this, there are 5 true Predator franchise movies, and it is these.
Yes.
The Aliens vs. Predator is their own storyline?
I believe they're not canon anymore to the main storyline, whatever that's worth for a slasher creature movie. So, but AVP and AVP Requiem, I believe the sequel is called.
Yeah, there was 2 of them.
Yep, those
don't belong here.
Yeah.
Do they belong to Alien?
No, they're kind of on their own island. As far as their own storylines of these kind of mashups here, it's almost like a Freddy versus Jason scenario where that doesn't really belong to either horror line.
Right, they're their own property on their own.
And AVP is similar as well.
Yeah, so I was kind of confused growing up about it. I was never a big fan like you were. I remember seeing the first Alien vs. Predator in the movies.
Sure.
Which is arguably just a horribly terrible movie.
AVP was a guilty pleasure growing up.
For you, you're watching your 2 mash up.
Exactly, and I really did fall into that hype. But I think if I had to really sell the idea of these original Predator movies, I mean it's a creature feature like you'd see in the 50s. It's about finding out the rules of the creature, and it's arguably one of the most iconic Hollywood creatures. I mean, the Predator is huge.
Definitely. And let's start there. We're back in 1987. A lot of people might recognize this one visually because it's Arnold Schwarzenegger in the jungle. A lot of famous quotes come from this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is 87. This is Predator. And what do we get with this first initial film in the franchise?
Sure. So we mentioned lightning in the bottle a few times on the show, and Predator is really one hell of a movie to originate this franchise, of how it evolves from buff action to horror to survival, and it's all wrapped in this South American jungle setting. A lot of what I'll reference with all these films, I mean, it basically, like I said a moment ago, it is a creature feature. It's about finding out the rules of the predator. What are his tools? What are his, vulnerabilities? How does he hunt? What is the logic of the creature?
Right.
Pretty much every one of these, the elevator pitch isn't much more than Predator in this setting. So where are we putting the Predator this week, basically?
That really is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it basically just boils down to
Which
that.
isn't bad because, I mean, it's an easy way to make a movie fresh, but it does work.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And I think, again, I can't overcomplicate these films. I think the more they get complicated, the more they try to juggle things, that's when they get bad.
That's the worst.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the simplicity of this first one is part of that lightning in the bottle is that it's able to evolve into these different genres effortlessly because it's not concerned with anything else. We really do follow it like a ride, as a one track type of way that the film evolves to it.
Okay.
But it's in that first genre of action that the film really sells the magic. Director John McTiernan is 1 year away from directing Die Hard, and just clearly knows how to create a dynamic action scene. There's just so much information given to the audience to create little tiebacks and payoff for when they're used in the action. The very first shootout is a great example of that, where we have all of the buff stars shooting up in a mercenary capacity, trying to capture and recover some assets. They're not up to speed on what they're doing, but just in the shootout itself, just the little things that are given to us as visual cues and then follow through on, whether that's a flaming car pushed down into the camp, or just something that is called back to. The action sequences are so dynamic. They're not just I'm shooting a gun at something, it's a bullet sponge, and then either I win or lose. No, it's really a dance around the screen. A perfect example actually is in Die Hard. Die Hard glass is used as a repeat motif of how it's going to be difficult for John McClane to get around the building. And John McTiernan, as a director, is just so fantastic at tying little things like that into the action to make it much more than I shoot at you, you shoot at me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense because it's much more complicated than just your bare bones basic action thing.
Absolutely.
Because with this premise and what this movie is, it has complete room to be a very bad movie.
Oh, yeah.
Or generic, we should say. So he's very good at taking the non-generic route and making it interesting for the viewers. So I think that makes total sense.
Yeah, and I think total nostalgia glasses off, I mean, you boil a lot of this down. I mean, it is a simple slasher movie with a creature. I think what's shocking to maybe even fans of the series that these films are almost destined for mediocrity, but it's the original ones that are able to take it up a notch, or at least this first one. I think universally it is agreed that it's able to take it so much farther than just a simple slasher or a simple creature feature.
And I think that's impressive.
Yeah.
I think you're already... you're in the 80s action film, so right away it's just like it's not looking good for you. Because most 80s movies just aren't good.
Right.
But to be so unique on film number 1, I think is pretty great.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, layering this action is key to how we discover so much about the Predator within the action and not in clumsy info dumps. And probably this is the most successful at doing so. I mean, this is really fundamental stuff, folks. It is show, don't tell. So when Arnold and his comrades are finding out about the Predator, it is directly through the action. It is not someone saying, "Oh yes, the Predator hunts this way and he's vulnerable in this way." No, there's nothing to that. So unfortunately, that is something that we get farther and farther away from as this, and that is really where I would call this lightning in the bottle, because it's able to communicate so much through action and action alone, and that's where it takes this very middle of the road slasher with an alien type of movie and elevates it to truly great.
Yeah.
Like I said in the intro, creature movies are about understanding the rules of how the monster works. A successful creature movie delivers that information through action. We go back to almost our zombie special, and we're finding out through the zombies about, through the action, we're learning about the creature along with the character. I would say countless lesser films would just dump a block of exposition on us to understand the Predator, but we'll put a pin in that for now, because that's definitely what a lot of sequels do. As more lore, more storytelling and world building around the Predator gets, and we learn about their alien society and how they operate. A lot of that is just handled very generic and very clumsy, and I feel like
it doesn't help this. It doesn't help it at all.
Yeah, if anything, it just falls into where these films on the surface probably look like they belong with every other slasher in kind of mediocrity.
Right.
So,
yep.
Like I would say, there are a lot of action sequences and even more action heroes. So let's go into it. We got Arnie Schwarzenegger. We got Apollo Carl Weathers, Bill Duke, Jesse Ventura, and even writer-director Shane Black, which we will revisit.
Really?
And this is his
that's hilarious.
Yeah, his comedic relief in this film kind of spawned his career of then writing, I believe it's all the Lethal Weapons he wrote, and then into his own directing career. Yeah.
I didn't think he was around that early on.
Yeah.
But if you're over the Lethal Weapons, that's awesome, especially for 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. All of the crew just oozes bravado and gives such a macho 80s feel in a good way. It is not in a bad way. We, of course, like you said, just get so many iconic lines. Apparently, the crew was even, or rather the cast was even working out behind takes so they could show a bigger pump for the action sequences.
Very Arnold in that time. That was all him.
But apparently everyone was doing it too, so they were fighting Arnold. It's just unreal. Arnold throws a knife in a guy. He says, "Stick around." Of course, the classic "Get to the chopper," is born from here. So there's a lot of iconic aspects to this film. I can't stress enough. If anything, going back to our RoboCop review, that's not what's equaling a great movie here, and that's definitely where I'm putting my nostalgia glasses aside, because I could see that and be charmed by it. I think maybe on a modern day watch, a very first watch, if someone hasn't seen this film, that could come off just like, wow, is this 80s or what? So,
and bad.
Right. So I think if anything, what's interesting is that this first film, the bravado of the mercenary group is intentional, because it does play into the arc of ultimately how the Predator is taken down and what Arnold and crew have to do to not really get on his level, but hunt the hunter, essentially. It is all in the vein of clearly being Arnie's show. It is 100%. His character Dutch is not only badass because he's impossibly buff and a mercenary in South America, but also because he's competent. I mean, this really hits a note of just being a character that I want to see problem solving on screen. When the character learns something about the Predator, he absorbs it and adds it to his tool belt. This isn't a nugget of information that is dropped just for the audience. Arnie is taking that, and guess what? In just the same way an aspect is dropped for the audience to pick up in an action sequence and then paid off in a single action sequence, we have the same aspect throughout the entire film coming into play to tie back to by the end, and when finally we're going head to head with the Predator. Then I think that competent nature, it creates momentum for the finale, and because of all things we have picked up as an audience is paid off on, we hunt the Predator along with Arnie, and I think that's part of the electricity here of this first film. It's just there's nothing that sets us back. There's nothing that I would even consider a side story. It is one straight shot towards a finale that is electric still today.
And it's funny how many callbacks almost we could make it back to the zombie film.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And it's very much the same thing as having that competent character in that main one where you want to be with, problem solve with him, and be on the ride along with him. Mm-hmm. And it also makes it a believable character as well, where you're not sitting there rolling your eyes.
Absolutely.
Maybe you have some of the cheesy jokes or some of the one-liners, sure. But the fact that they're putting Arnold Schwarzenegger in a not dumb jock or like
Yes.
dumb beefcake position.
Right,
Is
right.
is I think crucial to a film working like this.
Exactly.
And that's good that it sounds like it does too.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, it's something that we see the sequels just lose as far as it. They
and you know it is the one benefit of being the first film too,
Sure.
because you have nothing but to learn with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then since you don't have those information dumps and they're just telling you, there's something very fun about that, and
Yeah.
sitting on the edge of your seat of finding things out with him. And you basically next to him being that man in the camera,
Sure.
along for the ride, basically. That you can't recreate that because now we know what the Predators is and all the upcoming films. You know, it's
Sure.
like, how do you rebirth that? It's tough.
Yeah,
and
how do you-
clearly they said, let's just stick him in. Let's just do Predator here. Let's just do Predator here. But still, we know what the deal is
Right.
at some level still.
And I think you bring up a good point, because you can't, followers of the franchise, they're going to know what the Predator is about, his vulnerabilities and whatnot. And it's a shame that the new story elements, the new world building around Predator, is handled just through exposition. I'd be fine if maybe catching up with the existing knowledge of the Predator is handled through exposition.
Right.
But still handle the new developments through action. It is the advantage, this being the first one, though. Yeah, it has all the action is discovery around the creature, which is, again, it's just a dynamite film.
And you can be more simple, maybe not as a simple, completely basic film, but you don't need to do any extra mile. Where for all the movies after this, it's okay, what are we going to do this time?
Sure.
How are we going to present the audience with something that's going to make them, wonder or curious or blah, blah, blah. With this, you can just stick them in a jungle and just leave them there.
Right.
It can be simple,
Yeah.
and in ways that's why it works the best.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it just this first one is just on such a different level, and even watching it, it's something that I think there's a lot of appreciation for time after time upon viewing it, because you pick up how many seeds are planted throughout the action, and that they're going to be calling back to. And I think that really is the best part about taking this and a simple premise and making it great. I'll end with the man in the suit himself, Kevin Peter Hall. He plays the Predator in the first two ones, and the semi-unsung hero, as especially we move towards more CGI incorporations to the Predator. Believe me, as a fan of this franchise, I would love nothing more to just gush over how cool the weapons and the creature design are. But if only for this first one, those are the real spoilers. It is the creature itself,
Agreed.
If you haven't seen Predator, it's going to be a very positive recommendation for me, because I think there is such enjoyment to unpacking that, to finding out what he's about and or what it's about and how it hunts and everything like that. The story is unraveling the rules of the creature, and especially for how abrupt the film ends, there's really not much more than to that, and that's not a bad thing. I think if this movie had a side story in some sort of way, it would be significantly worse, and almost unfortunately, a lot of modern films fall in that they feel they need some sort of juggling of multiple plots to achieve complexity. This is simple and straight to the point, but has complexity through its action, which is so much easier said than done.
Yeah.
I would say critically, I can say the special effects hold up well, and most of that is sold by Kevin's great practical work with being in a big alien suit. I think this. I haven't checked on modern prices of what a Predator suit is, but as a kid, I was fascinated that you could actually buy a rubber Predator suit, and it looked pretty good.
I saw one at Comic-Con a few years ago.
Yeah.
It looked very good. He
So-
needed help walking down the stairs, which was funny. Having two people next to the Predator helping him walk down gingerly the steps.
Geriatric Predator. Yeah. It is a stellar start, and I can't stress enough, folks, not only for an iconic Hollywood creature, not only for an iconic Hollywood actor like Arnie, it is because it is a well-crafted movie inside and out. It is a tight package, a lightning in a bottle. Predator really walks the walk and talks the talk because it is layered in the action. It's just so well-crafted for that reason. While the sequels enjoyably build on the Predator's lore and mythos, plot and structure-wise, everything is in the shadow of this first film. We're going to go ahead and give Predator 82.
Wow. 82, very good score. And I mean, there's no wonder why there's still 4 and they're still making films.
yeah. Trying to revisit the same premise, Predator in X location.
Yeah. And for all the times that you've seen this in your life and sitting down for the podcast and watching this again, that's great that it still brings a uniqueness or a freshness or is still enjoyable after watching it so many times.
Well over double-digit watches. And
really?
Still. Oh, yeah. Because, again, I loved Predator first.
Right.
Before Alien even. So I was almost shocked, how much a film can stay true to an enjoyable experience, getting involved in that and getting enveloped in the storytelling of it.
Okay, well that's a big score. It's 82 for the first Predator. I love it. I think that's great, and I think a lot of folks that haven't seen it maybe should give it a watch because I think there's a stigma behind this genre and these films as well, whether it be Alien or whether it be Predator, where it's maybe not for you. But I feel like this is more wider reaching than you would think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think 82 represents that as well. But okay, so that's 1987. We're jumping 3 years ahead. This is 1990, and this is very simply Predator 2, and this is Stephen Hopkins now directing. And what story do we get here? Where is the Predator, and who are our actors in this one?
Sure. So, as far as this one, Predator is in the concrete jungle, which is like, all right, it's really, Predator in the city is the next thing to go. But I gotta say, I really have to defend this one. I've actually been really nervous out of however many films we have now.
Yeah.
Obviously I have some controversial opinions among those, and Predator 2 might be one of the most controversial, and I was a little bit nervous about this.
Okay.
So, I made sure I really, really, with a fine-tooth comb, went over this film, and it's because this film is really universally hated by critics and fans. This is not a well-received Predator.
I thought the fans like this one.
No. I like this one. Fans do not.
Okay.
The claim is that it is a failure to take what works in the original and has less star power on screen and, to boot, worse action. But damn it, I love this movie.
Okay, all right.
This is so much better of a sequel than, like, almost every other sequel that has come out, AVP included. And I'm just going to really have to defend this one because I am in the outlier for sure. I recognize that. Bring on the hate mail, but this is a good Predator movie.
Let me quell you real quick on this.
Sure.
I watched Predator 2 for the first time kind of recently.
Okay, all right.
And I was surprised with how much I actually enjoyed it.
Good, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right there, I think you're on good turf. That's okay.
At least I have
in
an
this
ally
apartment,
in the room.
Yeah. We'll sing together.
Yeah. Our opening shot pans over trees in a familiar jungle setting until Los Angeles. The Predator is in the concrete jungle. And an important note to make, because part of the actual critical hate of this, of other critics, is that this movie was made in 1990, and the story is set in 1997. This is a hyper-stylized, fictional, sci-fi, if you will, with the sci-fi alien.
Yeah, it's definitely sci-fi, yeah.
Yeah, this is a fictionalized, hyper-stylized LA. Every day, the heat is over 100 degrees. One of my favorite aspects is that everyone has sweat, part of their, huge sweat stains as part of their costume.
I don't know if I remember that one.
Everyone, through suits, through jackets, everyone has sweat stains. The gangs, they are blown out of proportion and to the point of fantasy. They are there's a Jamaican voodoo gang, which is a little tasteless, a little, almost offensive. All of this is driving home that overpopulation is out of control. I mean, in the way that a sci-fi should be, it's taking these elements and making them campy, making them cartoonish, certainly, but that is the point. And I feel like a lot of flack comes towards this film that there's not a realism to LA. It is a comic bookish, campy, cartoony LA.
Okay.
But it's also about a space alien that hunts.
Yeah, it kind of
people,
makes it. It's kind of all part of it that makes it good. Yeah,
we can have some pulp. We can have some campiness to it. I mean, this.
Yeah, I think definitely.
Yeah, at the time and even currently to today, you have to understand this setting was 7 years ahead of the release. There is an intentional stylization to it, and I have no problem if the comic bookish campiness is taken to a film, but it has to be appropriate. And what's more appropriate to blow something out than to be a stylized city for a stylized monster to have a romp in? That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching it, but I don't know.
You gotta hit me with a Tommy Two Shoes with this Predator 2.
I just think I had no issues with it, and I don't know if it made sense. I never really reflected on it that much, but thinking on it now, it's like watching it. I don't know. I thought it made sense.
Yeah,
I didn't. I wasn't sitting there angry that we weren't getting some sort of realistic LA or some such.
Right.
I'll put it this: it definitely was nothing like Escape from LA or anything like that. I mean, we were watching something with some semblance, of normality. So I thought, if you're going to blow out the edges a little bit, or change it up or massage it a little bit into an LA that you want, I had no issues.
Sure. And honestly, I think it gets a good rating from me, not because of my love or nostalgia of these stylized elements. It gets a good rating from me because it has the same fundamentals as Predator 1, and that is unraveling the rules of the creature. And that really is the mark here of how they're unraveling the rules of the creature and what that end product is, because some of these sequels do just the same or have the same approach to it, but it's layered in the most boring way possible. Danny Glover, partner again. Speaking of Shane Black and writing, is our lead here, playing an action-packed detective in this cartoonish gangland. He's hanging out of cars, shooting at gang members that are entrenched behind flaming vehicles, and everyone has laser sights on their guns. It's extremely 90s. And right off the back, I enjoyed this slight mix-up in perspective. With Arnie, he is a mercenary, so he learns about the Predator because of his desire to kill it. With Danny being a detective, he is naturally inclined to investigate the mystery of the Predator. So, maybe not every piece of the Predator is, or every piece of information of the Predator is gained through action.
Right.
It is gained through him as a character being interested in what the hell is this monster in my city.
Yeah, it's a little bit noir-esque.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
So fundamentally, we interact with the plot in the same way, but in a new spin as the sequel. And guess what? It goes back to what you said. That first one, we have the advantage of not knowing what the Predator is about.
Right.
The second one, guess who knows what the Predator is about? The audience members. So when it plays into an investigation story, we're able now to interact with the plot in the best ways that a detective story is, that we're putting the pieces together with the character.
Yeah, definitely.
And again, that's where my argument is here. Same fundamentals as Predator 1, different spin. And that equals a good movie for me. But it has to have those fundamentals to it.
I think that works completely.
Yeah.
I think it comes across well, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because Glover carries it. I would say. I mean, yeah.
I mean, he's definitely nowhere as badass as Arnie.
No, but he's not supposed to be, though.
Right.
He's just not supposed to be. He's just an LA detective.
He's got some great lines in this, though. I mean, the way he curses, the way he gets angry in this, I mean, it's very enjoyable.
That's why he's so good in the Lethal Weapons.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which we're definitely going to have to cover soon.
I mean, there's 4 of them.
Yes, well, and there's been a 5th one that's been talked about.
There you go. There's our 5 spot.
Yeah, I know. We need it to be made.
We need it done. Yeah.
And apparently it's in the works, or definitely, everyone's in, apparently.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I hope we get it sooner rather than later.
That's great.
Anyway, back to the...
That's my main crutch, or the main crux of my defending of this, is that people think that it's nothing like Predator 1, where the fundamentals are, if anything, probably the closest to Predator 1 of any of these films we're going to be talking about today, but it's it's a different lens of how we're seeing the same information be consumed by our characters, problem solved with our characters, and then attacked as an action and as a horror slasher. So let's tackle some of the bad, though, because it can't all be good with a film that is hated on this much. And I mean, there's a lot of hate on this one. My main problem really boils down to Bill Paxton and Gary Busey. Paxton basically fills the shoes of Shane Black as the slight comedic relief. He's just classic annoying character. And
it's a shame.
Yeah, the difference between annoying character in the first one is, I mean, there's a limited run time, we'll say, that he's on screen. Paxton sticks around well beyond beyond his welcome.
He overstays his welcome.
Oh yeah. He needs to get the boot a lot earlier in the story, and his character is, of course, supposed to be stupid. But I think in just the same way that I'm so hyper focused on characters being competent in horror films, his character hurts some of the enjoyment when his jokes are taking away from Danny being legitimately awesome and badass on screen. He really is a one-man force, much like how Arnie is,
right.
But his setting is his city that he's a detective in,
right.
It's his prowess. The story does have some more generic elements to it as well. We find that in Gary Busey being this federal investigator character. Honestly, that's another note for this entire series. Anytime they incorporate a federal element trying to capture the predator or anything like that, it is the worst part of all these films. It is just like so generic. Like, we don't need it. It's about the one-on-one. It's about the hunt.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Busey, I kind of forget Busey's character a little bit, but he's like over the top, right?
Yeah. Well, as he is as an actor,
as many
I
things.
feel,
Well, we loved him last week, right?
Gary Busey?
Didn't he play the alcoholic father?
No.
In Warrior?
You're thinking of Nick Nolte. Oh. Very different. Very different.
That's right. I'm thinking of Nick Nolte. Yeah, in my mind, I interchange them all the time, actually, now that I come to think of it. One of them's in the Lethal Weapons movie. Now I can't even remember who the hell it is.
I'm pretty sure it's Busey. I don't know, actually. I forget.
All right, scratch it.
The pacing is hurt by this. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? It's useless
when they're
bullshit.
Interacting with the fight scenes.
Exactly. Instead, what it creates in the script is that it switches the conflict from man versus kind of foursome nature, being the predator, to man versus man, and it takes that emphasis away from the hunt. You know what I mean?
Right. No, absolutely.
Which is easily the strongest part about it, and what everyone is signing up for.
It is the most engaging. Yeah. It's when you're most engaged.
It's called Predator.
Yeah, but it's also an action movie. You can't say that the interactions between the two and the conflicts aren't something that you should necessarily automatically write off.
Sure.
I just think they're done poorly, you would say.
Right. In execution.
They could be good.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
In concept, they're meant to create maybe some variety to it, a different perspective for the Predator.
Right. They should be important. Again, it is an action flick. It's a horror action movie.
Sure, absolutely. But in execution, I would say across the board, when they muddy the water to it, when we basically lose the perspective of our main character as the sole perspective in these films, that's where the quality kind of dips.
Sure,
with it.
yeah.
Honestly, it is crazy though how much hate this movie gets. People think this is the worst Predator, and I do not. I am far from that. It
surprises me.
Yeah, it is unreal. I would say the same love of lore building is there for what is going to be the focus of this entire series, about giving us nuggets of information about the Predator. I can't stress enough, it's handled in the same way that we're getting it through action and not lore dumps, and we're not just getting exposition about the Predator and then the action is separate. And that's what's important for a sequel. The fundamentals of how the story works and how we're interacting with the story, that is a sequel to it. If it can expand the world, if it can maybe give us a fresh perspective or a kind of a re-roll of the circumstances, but still has that fundamentals of how that previous story worked, that is a sequel to me. Not us needing to be in the jungle, not us needing to have more horror sequences. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely.
A goofy, cartoony LA is fine for that because guess what? We now have fun set pieces to still work in that same type of logic of we're finding out about the creature and how we're hunting it. This film is absolutely still about the discovery of the creature, now wrapped in a very stylized city. I think the flack this film gets for its style and setting is totally undeserved. And if anything, I applaud them for switching things up so much because, again, it understands the core is about unpacking the creature, not necessarily the circumstances that the creature is shown. Now, bring on the hate mail. We're going to give Predator 2 a 78. Bring it on.
It's a very high score.
I will defend it to the death. I'm dying on the hill.
I think it's a good movie. I think it's a good movie. It's an engaging movie, and I think it's what it is. It's supposed to be what it is.
Yeah.
I'm cool with the 78.
Yeah.
You know,
camp is a hard thing. Right. It's a high score.
It is a high score.
It is a high score. I am defiant with it, though. Camp, campiness, cartooniness, it's hard to defend, and I think that the argument for it has been so perverted by Marvel, you know what I mean, what people watch on screen, but seriously, watch this film for how goofy and how cartoonish it is. Again, as something so simple as the sweat stains on every person. Every person is just sweating in 3 places through their shirts. I'm not saying that adds substance to it, but it is style that plays into a fun way to consume what we're ultimately going to have to discover about the Predator in the same format. It's those things do add up to enjoyment of
that, and going along the ride with Danny Glover in the detective stance in the city. I just think it is completely different. It's a very much different film than number one.
Absolutely.
And for that, I respect your 78.
You do, but
I do.
I don't think a lot of people
If I went back and looked at all the other ratings and compared, maybe how I'd love to do that. Then we'll see. But no, I love it, and I think you make a good case for it, and I would love to get hate mail.
Yeah.
People want to give us money, and I'll happily, gleefully read the hate mail to you. Okay, so that's 1990. That's Predator 2, the 78. So far, 1 and 2 are doing great.
Great.
And it's 20 years later until we get our next true Predator. But this is where we have the AVPs, correct?
Yeah, in there. Yeah. For Predators, there's a lot of time between Predator 2 and Predators. A lot is done with the franchise.
Right.
There are about over 24 comic book runs from 1990 onward, which basically become not the
source material.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It is the source material for the franchise, published by Dark Horse too, so reputable. Film-wise, we have the 2 AVP movies, which we started the podcast kind of talking about,
right?
And now those are spin-off franchise, but for a time they were canon to the lore building of the Predator.
And that's where we get this 20-year gap from 1990. We're now in 2010. And this is Predators. So we have Predator 2, and now this is Predators, which is technically film number 3. What do we get with this 20 years later? How do we return to this character?
Sure. So where I maybe give some idea to how there are so many stories being told in many different formats, probably a handful of video games as well, between the 2 films. It's going to be a challenge from basically 2000s onward to basically tell a unique Predator story, because especially with the comic books are concerned, there are very, very wild things being done with the Predator.
You could take it in a lot of different directions.
So there's not a lot of unique aspect to it. Predators does take a good stab at originality. We are dropped back in the jungle, but that's not quite the jungle we know. We focus on a crew of mercenaries and thugs again, but they don't seem to know each other or even how they got involved in the jungle. The only thing is certain is that they are being hunted, and by the new plural designation of the title, it is suggesting that multiple predators are hunting them.
Right.
I gotta say, I really enjoyed this initial mystery of what the hell was happening in the film. And it really...
That's good. That's important to get back.
Yeah, absolutely.
That mystery and that,
Like, what? How does this work out?
Yeah.
It really is probably the best chance this film has at its kind of inaccurate comparisons to being the most dangerous game with sci-fi spin on it.
Okay. I can see
that's used a lot in comparison. I'm not even in the literary analysis of most dangerous game, but it kind of is a different, it's just someone's hunting people.
Right.
It's not really the same thing, but it really was the most enjoyable parts, and that's where I, maybe more carefully than I do normally, I want to tiptoe around what the simple answer is to where they are and who these people are interacting with the Predator, because it really was one of the few enjoyable parts about this film. But man, is this one sunk with some bad, lazy ass writing. Man, man.
Really?
Super disappointed.
He's got a big cast here on this one.
Yeah.
That's a huge shame.
The concept of strangers forced into a hunting ground doesn't really have to be the most complex story, but wow, does this plot make the most predictable choices. Folks at home, if you can think about that premise and think about what maybe a twist and turn will be, guess what? It probably happens in the film, and you really don't have to watch this movie. A perfect example is people really just sacrifice themselves randomly, and it pays off so weak because there's no bonds between these characters, but the scenes really try to sell it in the most phony way possible. The music swells. They're briefly triumphant, it goes on and on. It's very predictable as far as like a blockbuster film or wannabe blockbuster film. Because I don't think this film really did that good as far as the box office goes.
No.
Worst of all, the film is packed, and I mean packed, with exposition dumps about how the Predator works and their hunting,
it's exactly what you liked not about the first one, or exactly what you liked about the first one, it not having that.
Absolutely. It is. It could, if Predator 2, I had to argue that it's actually a functioning sequel. Mm-hmm. My argument here is that this is a total 180 as a sequel. Yes, this may feel more jungly Predator like people wanted out of a sequel, but it couldn't be farther in function of how this film actually works.
And that really is, it really does come down to writing at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Adrian Brody just makes smug guesses about how the Predator works, and that's what they work off of in the problem solving. I think worst of all is he's rewarded for being correct too with these smug guesses.
It's not good. You're not along with the character.
Absolutely,
you're not getting those adding of the tool belt like you were saying with Arnie, where he's learning things, picking up things, and using that, being a smart person.
Absolutely,
yeah.
There's a plot device that they have these like predator dogs in. we're working with in this film that. They're a hunting tool of the hunter, as dogs are used in it, and Adrian Brody's character is just so like gruff and like, I would do that, and that's why they're doing that, and he's just right, and it's annoying that he's right, and it's untested, but it does it I think it fails because we're not discovering that alongside the character. The character is prescribing that to us. He's talking to us to get us up to speed with it, and that's not. That's nowhere near the same satisfaction as Arnie coming across a vulnerability of the Predator in the jungle through a direct action and through a direct action sequence that we've all seen. You know what I mean? We see it play out, and that's how we get the info. Lawrence Fishburne as well. Wow. We talked about new Morpheus last week, old Morpheus. Man.
Acting or writing?
Both. Okay. I mean, easy. Get him off the screen. It's in this as well that he basically pops into the plot to explain the entire plot and destroy any mystery of what is going on with these multiple predators and what they're about.
Oh, really?
I mean, it is in one scene that we basically get the entire elevator pitch, and it's just such a shame because, again, I would say a good maybe quarter of the film, I was super invested of what the hell is going on with this.
And then Lawrence Fishburne told you.
He told me, and then he told me everything the Predators are about and how to kill them and how he killed them in the past. And it's
that's bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
That's weird. It's just lazy. I guess that is really lazy and bad writing.
Yeah.
You would think at some point, somewhere, someone along the road would be like, maybe we should make it more difficult to know what's going on rather than just telling the audience specifically what the deal is.
Exactly.
That's a shame.
Exactly. And of this large cast that you commented on, there's...
yeah, my boy's in it.
Which one's your boy?
Walton Goggins. He plays Stans.
Who's Walton Goggins?
Walton Goggins, he was...
I watched the film and it was Walton Goggins. Oh, wait. Oh, he's... He
was in Justified, and now Tarantino picked him up, too, as a guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Walton, he actually is good in it, so I'll take it back. I do remember him. I had no idea his
name.
He
played Stans.
Yeah. You say that like I know the character.
Well, you watched the movie. I don't know. Anyway, the rest of the cast. What else we have? It's the guy from the comedy show, That's So 70 show in this. Is that him?
Oh, Topher Grace. Terrible.
That makes sense. I mean, how is it possible that he would be good?
He definitely plays into the predictability of the writing. I mean,
okay.
Again, if you thought if you were forced to think of 3 twists and turns in a blockbuster script, guess what? You will hit some twist and turn that is in this film.
Okay.
It's really annoying.
Who played the movie Idiot then? Or is there too many of them?
They're kind of all idiots.
Danny
honestly.
Trejo is in it. He had to be god awful.
No, he's. I don't know. You hating on Machete?
Yeah. Oh,
really?
Big time.
Okay. All right. We'll have to do a Machete special sometime. I don't know. I'm not really defending any of the performances here because again, they're really just tools to make this like generic. They're forced together, and again, it's trying to get.
I don't hate that.
Yeah.
It would be better if you just didn't tell the audience anything.
Right.
And then you had this element of like, okay, who are they? How did they get here? What's going on?
Sure.
How many are there? That type of deal.
Right. And it really, the group is brought together against the odds that they're facing, obviously,
right.
Of multiple predators hunting them down. But it would be so different if that maybe we saw those bonds in just the same way that we don't see knowledge of the predator gained through action. We don't see these bonds created through action either. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're strangers. We get briefed by Lawrence Fishburne, and then they're not really strangers anymore to the point that they're sacrificing themselves for each other. And it just feels so incredibly unearned.
Yeah.
It really does. About as generic as it can be. And this is honestly is a perfect example of like on the surface, you maybe look at this film and say, oh, I mean, what's the difference between any of the Predators movies? I mean, this just seems like the same, alien slasher movie.
Yeah, it's not at all.
In execution, it fails to reach the greatness.
Yeah, it sounds like there's so much less. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just so unearned. That really was my I cannot understate how unsatisfying it is to be told every answer around the mystery of the scene. And I mean in a single scene. It was in one scene that Fishburne just gives us the whole lowdown, Unearned is the word I would describe it all as. And I would say even as a huge fan of the series, there isn't much to rave about. The lethality of the Predators has gone way down. Little is done with the ongoing lore building, surprisingly, despite having multiple Predators. And again, if anything, you can say, was this exposition dump, did we have, a lot of new revelations around what the Predators are? No. It's surprisingly little. You can boil all of these movies down to a bloody slasher with an alien. It is not complicated stuff. What is masterful is how that simple premise is unraveled, not through dialogue, but action. This is fundamentals, folks. Like I said, it is show, don't tell, and this film is telling it all, whether you were listening or not. I mean, it is telling it all. And it fails to be any more than a simple slasher premise for that reason, riding on the coattails of the franchise. We're going to go ahead and give Predators a 45.
Ooh, good. I like it. I bet you won't catch any flack on that one.
Sure.
I think at 45, because
it is kind of just an inoffensive movie, you know what I mean? Especially when it tries to create those fake empathy moments within the squad. I hate that.
Oh, I would hate that.
I hate that so much.
Oh my God, yeah. I think most people do, absolutely.
Yeah. Unearned.
Okay, so that was 2000. So we're jumping 8 years in ahead. We're in 2018. This is now Shane Black directing it, who I think we like generally, but
Sure.
This is The Predator, film number 4. And how do we return to it?
A nightmare of titles to deal with.
It's just like, you know.
It's like, please don't just put a "the" in front of it. Like, that's very confusing.
So what do we get with? How do we return? How do we make it fresh, unique? I mean, what do we like? You think you're running out of options at this point?
The Predator is a weird movie. It's tough to honestly talk about with how much it tries to juggle and kind of fails at the juggling act. I mean, honestly, who would have thought the funny guy from Predator 1 would go on to have a career in directing and writing? At least on the podcast, we actually covered Kiss Kiss Bang Bang not too long ago, and The Nice Guys is a huge favorite of ours.
You did not love Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, though.
I didn't love it, no.
Nice Guys is...
Yeah.
That's high on the ratings, yeah.
It is. And, as far as making the sequel and a fresh take on the franchise, it really does sound like a match in heaven with one of the original cast members helming this. But I can't tell you... that is not the case here. The Predator tells a story with surprisingly little from the alien. We really don't see a lot of the Predator here, or at least the Predator in an action capacity. The runtime is crowded with 3 story perspectives, one of which is a child, believe it or not. And if folks, you know me...
It's not good news.
Yeah. I don't hate children, but I did not like this child perspective.
We hate child actors.
Right. It is really bad. This gives us the elevator pitch of Predator in the Suburbs, as lame as that sounds.
It does sound lame.
Yeah, does that sound like a movie you want to watch?
It sounds lame.
Does that sound like you go out to the movie theater for Predator in the Suburbs?
No.
Yeah.
Especially if there's a kid involved.
Yeah, exactly. So, Shane may be directing here, but what lacks is his signature style in him penning the script as well. He is writing here as well, which originally I did not think was the case, but he is writing here as well. This movie is just being different for a Predator story. It is very different for a Predator story, and in ways I want to applaud Shane Black for trying something different.
Props for mixing it up.
Yeah, but because of it being different, it actually falls into generic pitfalls of other Hollywood type of movies, other blockbuster action films, or even other kind of blockbuster slasher movies. It falls into very generic ways, which is so odd to say because Shane Black is, he's an aggressor. His scripts are looking to offend. His scripts are looking to be edgy, almost overly edgy in a way. And it's so odd to have this fall into these generic pitfalls that it's almost mind-boggling how bad this movie is.
Really?
Yeah, it's a mess. The plot just drags and drags. We split the time between a soldier plot, a kid plot, and a government plot.
Okay.
And obviously these things converge at some point, but each piece is so impossibly weaker for it, and as a result, it feels like a soulless slasher movie. It doesn't feel like a labor of love that you would almost guess that Shane Black would be dying to return to this. You know? He is now, maybe 5-6 movies into his directing career, a huge success as writing. So imagine getting the opportunity to work a sequel of what spawned your whole career.
It would be pretty incredible.
Yeah,
I wonder what went wrong.
It's a dream project, but I just feel again, it's just odd how this film comes in execution off as the most generic thing possible by trying to be different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah,
it's weird.
It's an oddball.
Yeah, was there these 3 different storylines? Was one of them at least enjoyable? The kid one we don't like. Was there some where we were just like, oh, at least we're back here now. I like these guys.
Yeah, I think by the time they tie all together, the government plot kind of dissolves into it, and then it's just about the soldier and the kid. I don't know. I just don't think that is a worthwhile perspective to view the Predator through or to discover the Predator through. Like, like I argued for Predator 2, Danny being a detective, hey, that's an interesting character to approach the challenge of the Predator. I think a soldier's already been done, and a kid is not interesting.
Right.
You know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Not, with no spoilers, but there are plot armor elements because for this odd rated R film, we're now trying to make these feel good elements around the kid plot. It's just very odd. It's a super
eye rolly,
and like the weirdest rated R film I've ever seen.
In a bad way.
Yeah,
that could
in
be
a bad
cool,
way.
but
Yeah. You look at some of the other movies. Shane is both writing and directing. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Iron Man 3, Nice Guys, and story expectations are flipped on their head to tell unique stories. This movie has a similar quality that it's trying to take your expectations for a Predator story and say, screw you. Yeah, you actually don't know how this goes.
Right.
And I like the brazenness of that. But again, what is the odd after product, the odd result of that is the movie is just super generic, and it feels terrible for that reason. It fails to have follow through in creating anything interesting, creative, or even unique with this. And I hate to be that harsh on a director I do appreciate, but man, it's a mess of a film.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, it's like a Frankenstein's monster of Hollywood movies. It's nuts. Worst of all, this film's action takes the biggest hit. Guns fights have just no weight. Bullets are not a factor that we're dealing with. It doesn't injure the Predator. It doesn't injure anyone, unless the story deems it to. Yeah, exactly.
No stakes.
The structuring of the fights are more around people versus people, which is, again, I think the pitfall of the series. Keep us people versus the Predator,
yep.
or him being a force of hunting. And these lame action sequences are like Predator on a baseball field. Predator in a locker room. Like, do these sound like electric ideas?
No, you want dystopian LA.
Yeah,
almost.
Exactly. Predator 2. Predator's on the top of a building and he absorbs lightning. That's badass. That's what I want to see. I don't care how goofy it is.
Predator in a baseball field.
Yeah. It's like Predator's running across a baseball field. It's just like, oh my God, this is the most generic thing possible.
Oh man, that's
it's
great.
So bad. But really, the shame of it is that, again, there is a similar approach. If anything, there's the most lore building in this film. Mm-hmm. We find out the most about Predator society and Predator politics, and almost like way too much. If anything, it kind of ruins maybe even some of the mystique around the creature.
I think that's so often true.
Yeah,
it's like a gals in the olden days who just see an ankle, where sometimes the imagination is better than revealing bikinis.
I think that's a great way to put it, because if anything, that's what spawned a huge comic book run, because we didn't get answers after 2 movies, and people obviously
you don't know shit about the character.
Yeah, exactly. So they wanted to build the lore around it. So it's a real shame that obviously some of this maybe comes from action and kind of passes this test I've had through the franchise so far of what is a good movie and what maybe elevates it to be a great movie. But the action itself is so inconsequential. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't even focus on Predator half the time as the primary threat. So yeah, maybe if some insight comes from that action, sure, but it's not even focused on our guy. The movie's called The Predator. Not The Predator and government agencies and a kid, and it's The. It's so ridiculous. I'm in disbelief about this movie. Last thing I will touch on is acting and characters, and I gotta say, we say a lot of our guys, our girl Olivia Munn, god awful in this.
It's not surprising. She's bad.
Yeah, rip OG Attack of the Show for that. Man, it's just so painful watching this government plot that she's a part of on screen, because you have Shane Black's writing, which is honestly a curse word every other sentence. And again, I'm not mad at that. It's his style. He's trying to be almost intentionally offensive with it. But it just fits so poorly that's with the kid plot, that's with the soldier plot. Sure, fine on both of those, but that's with the government plot as well. It's like no one's serious. No one's even just there's nothing there.
Yeah,
you know.
I think that's a good distinction to make. Yeah,
yeah,
or something to point out. That's good.
Yeah. The kid perspective then is as ridiculous as it sounds. I'm not trying to grill this kid, as we've talked about many times with kid performances, but it is an oddball. There is a heavy implication throughout this film that the child is autistic, and right off the back, one, it's a bit tasteless in the same script to have very small moments highlighting this, and then have characters saying retard and different offensive things to it. So it's a bit tasteless to like within the same script to be juggling these things. And the fact that the plot actually tries to tie this into the Predator story is absolutely asinine. Like, it is so bad. It is so bad. I, of course, can't speak for parents or individuals that deal with this work or work with autism to say if this is a welcome representation, but this goes back to the fact that this is a lowbrow, cursing, bloody slasher rated R film that they're trying to juggle a tasteful inclusion of autism. It just simply does not work. This is where I'm saying, this film is like,
that's for sure,
20 different things and trying to be so different, but just wow, it just fails so much in the execution. And really, if I had to boil it down, my gut says that it is not going to be a meaningful inclusion of that plot summary or plot device or not, because it's only 1/3 of the plot. If you want to make a story about that, it has to be the story to it. Like I said, this is a mess. I won't go on much more for it. When I first watched this film, I really didn't like it, but I think I gave credit to how much we learn about the Predator's intentions and things like that. And as a fan, I wanted to see that. But I have to say, I really, it cemented my original outright hate of this film upon rewatching it for this episode, folks. The film tries to be different and produces possibly the most generic movie ever made, which is it's mind-boggling. The action is a complete joke with zero stakes, and if anything, watching these together spotlight how much of a failure that is for the series and how we learn about the Predator. We're going to give the Predator a 26.
Ooh, okay. That is a bad movie.
Yeah. That if there's
stay
anything,
away,
exactly. If there's anything that is a stay away, it is this movie.
Yeah. And would you say that's you said that Predator 2 sometimes is even referred worse than this?
Yes.
No.
Listen.
That's stupid. That's wrong.
No,
people are just wrong on that one. All right, so we're saying the Predator, stay away, not needed. And because, that's one thing for these films, there's no need. You can kind of jump around. If you watch 2 and then you watch 1.
Oh, sure.
It's still fine.
It's the same, it's the same circumstances, just different setting. Predator
right. Ideally start with 1 because it's great.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Right,
absolutely.
Right. But yeah, it's not like you're following storylines where you can jump the Predator. You can go from Predators and go to Prey probably, and you'll be all right.
Absolutely,
you're not missing anything.
Yeah, you're really not. And if anything, there's for this last entry, there is something to be said about only watching the first one and then watching this one.
Oh, okay.
Well, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So before that, though, we're just going to quick remind people we are completely producer supported. We go with the value model. Are you finding the podcast and the website valuable? Are you tuning in every week, and are you enjoying it? Are you getting into film more than you were about a year ago or something like that? And are you just having a good time here and learning something?
Are you hating my reviews?
Yeah, hating the reviews. And if so, you can go to thedailyratings.com. You can send in a donation of any amount of value, whatever you're getting from it, and send it in to us. You write in a note. We'll read it here in the donation segment and give you a thanks and a shout out. And those of you who produce and are going to produce, it's a real credit to your name. It's what's going to keep this going. We're young. We're just starting out. If you can't donate anything, again, just get us in the conversation. Tell a friend, tell a family member. Just tell somebody. Get them listening and get them enjoying. And we would love to grow this into something kind of special. Again, it's a value model. totally producer supported, and you can go to thedailyratings.com. Now we have one more. Here we are. We are in 2022. This is our new film. It's not in theaters unless in special release and something like that. But
no, I think it's all Hulu.
yeah, it's Hulu release. This is just called Prey. And it belongs in the Predator 5 film.
Main line, yeah. So, even beating out AVP.
I don't know the director, but what do we get with Prey? And again, how do we return to this to make it fresh once again?
Sure. So the sequel really no one saw coming or really even asked for, you know what I mean? After I think the Predator, things were dead in the dirt for the franchise.
Only 4 years later.
Yeah. They were like, we could not, we gotta try this one again. The director here is of 10 Cloverfield Lane, which I have never seen. Which is kind of a shame. I hear great things about that.
You've never seen it?
10 Cloverfield Lane, no. I think I saw the original Cloverfield, but... Yeah.
Which one is the one with John Goodman?
That's Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, okay.
And definitely like the only like actual excellent movie people say to that franchise.
Yes, it is a good movie,
Yeah. So maybe a watch in the coming weeks. Our setting pitch for The Predator this time is not only putting us back in the wilderness, but back in time. We follow a group of Comanche Native Americans in the 1700s interacting with this type of primal predator. It's cool. Honestly, I was not hating it. My nerd brain maybe had a little bit of a problem with a spacefaring alien using older technology. Like the Predator clearly has light speed travel, but is using bone weapons. Like it's a little, yeah. But listen,
probably looks cool, but
yeah. It's an excuse to get another visual revamp of the Predator, which honestly, Predators and the Predator were obsessed with. They were really trying to, maybe it's just toy sales or something like that.
I try to keep it fresh too. Just try to do something different.
I got to keep my cynical brain. There's the nerd brain. There's the cynical brain. Got to keep that in check. I like this movie a lot, though.
Wow!
It is much slower, much more quiet. But in that represents the change in name. This is very different as a film because of how it approaches more of a slow, tense action. It is, I would say, in the juggling act of action, slasher, horror, survival. Maybe we drop a little bit of the action for thriller, and that in itself kind of combines into horror as well. It's a refreshing take, and I think a lot of this comes to actually having our first female lead, Amber Midthunder, and she plays a character called Naru. This is not the bravado of previous films. Naru's submissive role in story elements, her being a female in the tribe. These are Native Americans, so there's a hunter-gatherer. There are actual designations of who is hunting, who is gathering.
Okay.
And even, obviously, the predictable kind of slight she has as a character from other men. It's followed through on in action, and I was fairly impressed with this. The Predator is more of a slasher creature than ever because... he is stalking hopelessly underpowered. You know what I mean? At least Arnie had a machine gun. You know what I mean?
You think that they would be diminished to nothing very quickly.
Right. It's to the point of it being a joke. But the first time in the series, it really changes how our main character interacts with that. A well-established rule of the Predator is it doesn't attack unarmed non-threats to it. It's hunting only what is worth hunting. There's a pride or some sort of like hunter honor to that. And especially for the first one, we see that in a female character that is incorporated into the plot. So I give a lot of credit to this story using that as a premise for a fresh take on things. This is not let's have a female character for the sake of having a femme swap. This is using the rules of the Predator to create a fresh take on it. If anything, in more of a familiar setting, but a fresh take, in how we interact with the character as the Predator.
Okay, and I like that. And now, most importantly, if she's going to be our main and definitely on-screen percentage-wise the most, how was her acting?
Acting was good. I think a lot of chatter online is definitely still criticizing this as femme swap, Mary Sue kind of, usual criticism that comes to a character like this. But I really strongly disagree with that. I mean, I'm not saying that she's going to get an Oscar, but she brought a lot to the horror, the fear of this. And again, that plays to a more I mean, I guess we're all submissive to the predator, but she's not looking to really hunt this thing, and that changes and kind of cascades in the storytelling itself.
Okay, sure, yeah, okay.
I think she sells the fear as well. Maybe that just kind of plays to a fundamental that usually in horror movies you want a female lead because they can scream, they can sell the horror to it. So it's kind of just a kind of a better rule of thumb. But I can't be strong enough in the opposite of that opinion that this is just a soulless femme swap, if anything, like we covered with Ocean's 8, on the special we posted.
Yeah.
This stays true to the franchise by creating a story around the rules of the creature, one specific rule that we all know with the Predator, or fans of the franchise, and I mean, I've been saying it all episode, folks. I mean, that is how you make a sequel. You're taking the fundamentals of what this movie is about, this franchise is about, which is the rules of the creature, and guess what? We're creating a story around it.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
As far as the Predators and how they kind of look and how they felt in this film, and you're saying how there's like a little bit more primitive, I don't know, weapons and everything like
It's
that.
got like bone armor.
Were they any representative of like the bad guys in Bone Tomahawk? You know what I mean? You know I'm asking
certainly
that
not
question.
as gruesome as, and I think that's odd to say because Bone Tomahawk is whoa.
Yeah. But you know why I would ask that question?
Oh, for sure.
Because it kind of has that same feeling. They kind of look almost similar. They're quick. They're fast. They're just like they're killers. But no, not you. Didn't pop up.
And if anything, credit to Bone Tomahawk. I mean, I'm not even like a huge fan of that film, but that's a much scarier film than this film could ever be, just for how crazy that is.
Okay, all right, just saying.
Yeah. Now, where I will criticize is other actors' performances here. A lot of supporting Comanche actors just kind of seem like bros. The dialogue also comes off very modern, which is something that took me out. I mean, if you're going to make this have a time period of the 1700s or
sure,
earlier mid, I forget what it is,
Yeah, I think it's basically 300 years ago.
Yeah,
basically is what they're going for.
So
be more authentic.
Exactly. Yeah. It really took me out of the film multiple times, which is it's a shame because I was enjoying a lot of this film.
Okay.
I liked the slower tone. I liked the more tense action. I liked the female perspective to it. So, also kind of a good and bad thing, but it's something I definitely have to note is also the action is very video gamey in its approach. There's a speed to the action. There's also an inconsequentialness to some of the action. For instance, Naru has a hatchet on a rope, and it feels just way too quick how she can whip it back and forth. It was like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat or something. There's also like this mystical berry medicine, which just feels like bad Hollywood writing, but also bad video game writing is too. Like this berry medicine just solves everything where...
Okay, yeah.
In the reality, someone get gashed, they're just dying back then.
Right.
There's no saving them.
Right.
Berry medicine or otherwise. But it's not terrible. You're gonna get this with an action film, but it might not fly for the audience looking for more realism. And certainly, I think this will play to the fans of the franchise that are Predator 1 or bust, and the realism of Predator 1 or bust. And I think that's where maybe some of the fan flack hits this online. I personally thought this hurt the realism by the implied bare bones setting, and I was expecting more savageness. I mean, just something so simple as one of the Native Americans getting injured. I kind of really wanted to be like, okay, that's all it is. Can't do anything about it. Where berry medicine is rubbed on them, and maybe they survive, or maybe they're stabilized, and it's just like what?
In a bad, because it's just like, all right, Native Americans, Comanche,
Sure.
herbal medecine,
Right.
but no, it just it really didn't sell it.
6-inch gash through the stomach, berry medicine, and that's what I mean. I mean, I think that I make note of it not even as a positive or negative. It's more of kind of a understand your own tolerance for those type of plot devices or writing devices. And
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think that's just going to be a reality of the mixing of video games and film. It's just going to be more and more. Even the writers in Hollywood growing up with video games.
I will say, I don't see Barry Medicine as video game. I see that as lazy writing.
Okay. All right. But maybe Scorpion Hatchet.
Yeah, the visuals total, they could be pulled from some video games.
Sure.
I can understand that. Yeah.
A bit of a pro and con. I would think cinematography is a big plus for me. It sells the slower focus this film has, and I think it's very polished how it looks. Without a doubt, a 2022 release. I mean, this is a pretty sharp-looking film, Hulu or not, which, believe me, I'm not really in Hulu's camp.
No, and the director also does some episodes of The Boys on Amazon, which people love.
Absolutely.
So he's got some cred to him, whether Hulu does or not. Yeah,
absolutely. However, there is
Black Mirror too, by the way.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
What this guy, yeah.
No, I think 10 Cloverfield Lane is definitely going to be in the watch in the coming weeks because, I've heard wonderful things about the film. So, however, there is some really spotty CGI in this one, primarily with animals in the wilderness. It's odd. A lot of small beats of action put us in conflict with animals, and certainly that tells the story of Naru going from gatherer to hunter in kind of an arc. But it's just the animals, they just don't look good. Specifically a bear and a snake that is just like, whoa.
It's really bad.
Yeah.
It's like you're watching The Jungle Book all of a sudden.
Worse. Definitely worse than Jungle
really?
Book. Oh, yeah.
So the money just probably was not I
think so.
It's what it had to be, you know.
They're already having to shoot in a wilderness location. I just think the CGI just was not a priority to it, and it's also a little bit of a criticism I have that the small beats of action are not with the Predator; they are with animals and sometimes fake outs of that.
Okay,
we're expecting the Predator; it turns out to be an animal. That in itself is a little bit of an illustration of how this film is much more of a slow, tense thriller type of action horror, rather than being, again, what one is, which is action film all the way through. It is gunfire constantly.
Yeah.
So, as far as the Predator itself, kind of interesting tech. I didn't mention too much of the man in suit. Obviously, our original actor for the first two films is a big inclusion, and I want to make sure that he gets proper credit towards that. Obviously, for Predators and The Predator, we have a mix of yucky CGI and some man in suits. Here, the CGI with the Predator, I did not mind. It's actually a reverse of Finch that we covered a little bit ago, where Finch was prosthetic head, CGI body. We have CGI head, real man in suit body. And I think it was a good mix.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I think this definitely plays into some of that video gamey arcade action because... again, it doesn't look quite great that we have this man in suit and fast, CGI action being splashed in there. It doesn't translate too well. But I do want to applaud that, a 2022 film with, in the same movie we have bad CGI, that did not really succumb to the Predator itself. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think that's important for it. Overall, though, I thought this was a solid movie. Certainly back to basics approach while giving a fresh take. Really everything you want out of a sequel in a different way than Predator 2. But obviously I'm in the outlier of that. I also want to give some bonus points to a Comanche dub that's available on Hulu, which is pretty awesome. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what value it has towards the rating. Only checked it out for a brief amount of time, but good on them. I think that's kind of cool, that they're doing a...
Yeah, they didn't want to catch flack, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, you think it's like they would
business mood, yeah.
Really? I guess that didn't even occur to me.
Yeah. That's all it's about.
But
true. Good for them, they did it,
Well, at least my praise for it, I think it's more of a cool move. I actually did not even consider
cool.
that. As
me, that's how my brain goes, yeah.
But that you're probably right. I definitely agree with that there. So maybe we'll clock it back. Bonus points for movie. movie. No, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's cool brownie points, inconsequential to the overall rating. My fear, folks, is that the success of this film, and it is getting a lot of success critically and also by fans, it will obviously spawn more sequels, and that will erode at the novelty of this entry, this bare bonesness, this return to simplicity of trying to be Predator 1. But watching these all together, I still, if anything, I really appreciated watching the entire franchise through, because I believe that will show that this film has every right to be a main entry story despite the name change. Maybe even more than the films with Predator actually in their name. We're going to go ahead and give Prey a 70 on the dot.
Oh, wow. 70. Very good score. And I think a surprise for you and a surprise for most people who sees a random new Predator movie out on Hulu. Mm-hmm. You can only imagine how bad it's going to be, but a 70, that's a very, very respectable score.
Absolutely.
That's getting into the, pretty damn good movies.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how refreshing and nice that to kind of cap off with that as well. And a new take on it, I think it's kind of an interesting premise, I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, I think... say what you will about the average quality for Hulu, actual film releases.
Sure.
But again, this is getting a lot of praise. I think Hulu is going to lean in heavy to this IP and probably going to get a lot of sequels, which I'm hoping
we'll see how it
in
goes.
hindsight this film holds up its novelty, because it is very interesting and I like it quite a bit.
One respect thing that I have for these movies, so all these movies are rated R, by the way, we should know.
Yep.
And the first, third, and fourth Predator movies are all an hour and 47 minutes.
Oh, yes.
Predator 2 is an hour and 48 minutes.
Okay.
And the only one that really strays from it is Prey, which is a quick, zippy hour and 39.
That's great.
But they're all extremely similar. They're all rated R, and it's, I think, purposely, of course.
Yep.
But kind of nice. You're in it and you're out. And if it's bad, at least you don't have to stick around for too long.
Right.
Looking at these scores, Vin, do you want to add anything, or are we rolling credits here?
No. I mean, I love the Predator franchise. This was a delight to do.
That's cool,
to cover. It was honestly awesome watching all these films. And if anything, I suggest, of the ones of my reviews that maybe pique your interest, watch them all together. Maybe marathon this. If anything, to those short run times. This is.
Or if anything, just maybe skip out on two of them.
Right.
Because really, if you want to watch 3,
Yeah.
if you want to watch 1, 2, and then film 5, go for it.
Yeah. Or to Hulu's delight, probably just Predator 1 and then jump right into Prey. So.
All right, Vin, thanks so much for watching all these Predators for us. Folks at home, we're going to run it back one more time here. We have Predator with an 82%, Predator 2 with a 78, Predators with a 45, The Predator with a 26, and finally Prey with a 70%. We thank you so much all for listening, and we'll see you next week on the Daily Ratings Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you would, give us a good rating, or tell a friend about us. If you're wondering if a film is worth a watch, or just like to see more movie ratings from Vince, be sure to stop by thedailyratings.com, where we have our ever-expanding catalog of films. Also, if you found value in the podcast or our site, become a producer and go to the donations tab on thedailyratings.com. You can donate whatever amount of value you feel you received from us. We're looking to build this into something large and great, but also be independent from those corporate sponsors. So we greatly appreciate any support from you all. So thanks so much, and we'll see you next time on the Daily Ratings Podcast.